Fife Property market update. This is going to be a good one because actually in this one we're going to take a look at the month of November to get a real look at the facts and figures. As always with this show, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them and we will come back to you. Even if you're not watching this live and you're watching the rerun, still comment and we will come back to you. But this is a fantastic show if you are curious into the Fife market, if you are selling, if you're perhaps already on the market, or if you're also buying within Fife. This gives you a really good insight into what is taking place, not just with ourselves, but all agencies. We then will take a look at our obviously agency and give you an insight into what activity is taking place. And then we will do a run through of the shows that have been done in the previous week so you know what you want to go back and perhaps rewatch. But this is a great one because, as I say, we're going to look at the month of November because something, if you are a regular to these shows, you will know we say it. 1 week doesn't make a trend. However, this is where this show is great because we're going to do the monthly roundup for November. Now, I've already had a wee sneak peek at the figures and you're going to be surprised. I am not, but you are. But it also is great to see because it backs up what I know myself and Perry have been saying when we've been going out to clients and we've been doing valuations and talking to clients that think that they need to wait until next year to sell. Now, we will get into that. But before we do the monthly, let's just do a quick roundup of last week's figures and we will take a look at those. So you should be able to see them up on the screen. Straight away, your eye should be drawn to the 81 new instructed versus the 92 sold. Now, to give you an insight, this is all agencies that use Rightmove across Fife, broken down into micro region, and then we give you the overall number. Now, it's great to see that again, another week backs up the fact that now is the time to sell. So there was 81 new properties hit the market last week alone versus 92 properties sold subject to concluded missives. That is 92 buyers that were on the market last week alone across Fife. And a lot of you might be surprised by that because especially as you think, and I had it just with a client yesterday when I was at an appointment, and they said, now's not really the time to sell, is it? I need to wait till next year. And I said to them, why they need to go now? And these figures absolutely back it up. Now we can break it down into micro region before we go ahead and do the monthly review. So there were 7 new instructions in Cooper versus 8 properties sold. That's kind of average numbers that we do tend to see for Cooper. What is slightly less though is the East Nuke. There was only 1 new instruction in the East Nuke. However, there was 5 properties that still sold, which is absolutely great to see. 5 is kind of average for what we see for the East Nuke, but it is great to see that even though obviously figures, yes, are less, it's still a good number for the East Nuke. There was only 1 new instruction, however, but keep a little listen out for further into the show and you'll hear of one that we have coming. St Andrews 5 versus 6. Slightly lighter on the new instructions, but still 6 properties sold. And it is great to see for St Andrews that there is still properties selling and going over the line. And it is actually not alarming to see that there was less instructions. We almost need to have less instructions to work through the backlog that it's sitting there. And I'll discuss that in more detail when we go to the monthly roundup. Or if you really are keen to understand, then you can go back and watch last week's show because there was a couple of people commenting asking questions in particular about St Andrews. So I gave a more in-depth insight. So if you are curious about the KY16, the St Andrews market, go back and watch last week's show because there's a lot of information in there into the St Andrews market. Leavenmouth, 4 instructions versus 13 properties sold. 4 is slightly low for Leavenmouth. However, we do say 1 week doesn't make a trend, and we will see that when we go to the monthly roundup. However, there was still an amazing 13 properties accepted offers, which is fantastic to see. That is a brilliant figure. Now, Dunfermline, 33 versus 33. Not very often do we get it on the nose. However, 33 is definitely less than what we do tend to see for Dunfermline. While all the other kind of micro regions are kind of still staying around their average numbers, that is quite a bit of a drop for Dunfermline. They're normally 50s to 60s. However, still 33 is a high transaction number in comparison to other areas. Dunfermline naturally always does have a higher transaction number purely just because of the stock that hits the market, but but also its proximity to the bridge and to the cities. So you do tend to see that. Glenrothes 14 versus 11. Now, what I will say is this is resale homes only. This is not taking into account new builds. However, we will do a roundup of the new builds shortly. So yes, 14 versus 11. So there was a lot of stock that hit Glenrothes last week, which is good to see. And Kirkcaldy 17 versus 16. Again, strong numbers. That's what we like to see. It normally does float around in the 20s. So there's not been a massive decrease. But actually, overall, 81 new instructions hit the market, but 92 properties sold. So when people say now is not the time to sell because people aren't buying, this just backs up the fact, which is great to see because I have been charming on about this for weeks and weeks and weeks in this show. And every week the figures are backing me up and it's there. And this is where we always say, do not listen to outside noise and don't kind of fall into the trap of your own mindset and what you think. This is where you need to educate yourself and really look at the facts. And this is where this show is fantastic because we literally show you it in black and white so you can make that decision for yourself. But this is where it is absolutely key to work with an agent that understands the marketplace and can guide you through that and has the local knowledge. And this just shows you now is a fantastic time to go to market. So that is just for last week. So from the 30th to the 6th, we're going to now do the monthly figures. And this is where it is going to be great to see because this just, again, supports why this is the time to sell. So this is for the month of November, exactly the same. New properties that hit the market versus properties that have now had offers accepted and are showing as sold subject to concluded missives. So 382 properties were new instructions to the market last month alone. That is still a high number of properties that hit the market. However, 423 properties sold last month. That is buyers on the market that are going out, offering, and have secured their property. So, plain and simple, more buyers on the market than stock that was put available. Now, you might be wondering, well, how is that the case? It doesn't mean to say that 423 were properties that went to market in the month of November. Don't forget, there is stock from the previous months before that, but there's 423 properties had offers accepted. And that is where this is a great show. And I always love doing the monthly roundup because we do always say 1 week doesn't make a trend. However, this gives you an insight into the whole month. And actually, the month where we're going out and people are saying, oh, now's not a good time to sell. We need to wait till spring, summer. We need to wait till the new year. People aren't buying. 423 buyers on the market last month, which just backs up the fact now is a key time to go because, yes, there's less stock hitting the market. So for you as a seller, there is less competition. However, there is still buyers out there. And obviously, it's broken down into micro regions and you can see that. Now, if you are thinking of selling, then this is where you, as I said, you need to look at the facts and you need to speak with a local agent that understands the marketplace. So if you are, feel free to reach out to us, pick up the phone, call the office, message us directly, comment on this and we will get in touch. But this is where you really need to understand what is taking place because if you enter the marketplace at a time when there's slightly less competition, one, you have that less competition, but what that means for buyers is they tend to act quicker because there isn't as much stock available and they need to secure something. And secondly, when there isn't as much stock available and more people are going for less stock, they have to put their best foot forward with their offers. And they can't afford to just try an offer or be cheeky with an offer and then go, oh, well, if I don't get this one, I'll just move on to the next one because there might not be a next one because there's less stock. So they have to act quicker and put the best foot forward. So you do tend to see that, which is great for you as a seller. And actually, people are like, oh, well, we're not going to do it until spring, summer. If you don't go to market until spring, summer, then you're not getting moved in spring, summer. You're then doing a winter move. But actually, if you go to the market now, then you will be most likely moved for spring, summer. And ultimately, that's when you want to be in your new home, enjoying it. When it's in full bloom, you've obviously got the lighter evenings. You've got what we can class as nicer weather. So this is really key to get yourself moving now for that spring, summer. And again, we would love to chat with you in more detail about that. Now you can see it's broken down into micro regions. So you've got 34 new properties hit the market in Cooper versus 32 properties sold. So 94% of the stock sold. East Snook, 14 instructions versus 18 properties sold, which is great to see because East Nuke, and I hear it all the time because that is one of the areas that I cover, oh, it's a bit slower or things aren't really selling. Absolutely not. Now, average selling time for the East Nuke can be anything from 2 to 3 months. So those 18 will obviously be in a little bit of a backlog of stock and some older stock, but it's still great to see that 18 properties sold within the East Nuke when people think, oh, it's out of season or people aren't really looking in the East Nuke. Absolutely not. That is a fantastic number. Likewise, then moving on to St Andrews, yes, there was less instructions with only 18, but as I just said, that is what we want for St Andrews. We want slightly less instructions just now so we can work through that backlog. So to see that there was still 26 properties sold within the KY16 postcode is fantastic because it means we are working through that stock. Average selling time in St Andrews is anything from 5 to 6 months. Obviously, we want to whittle that down and get that down again to a more obviously realistic time frame. So this is where we do need to be working through that backlog. So it was great to see that there was more properties sold in St Andrews than what came to market. Now, as I said, this is resale homes only. This is not taking into account the new builds. Levenmouth, 26 instructions versus 41 properties sold. So that's a fantastic result that 41 properties are now sold subject to concluded missives. Yes, there was less instructions, but it means any older stock is got cleared through. So actually 41 buyers in the KY8 postcode is absolutely fantastic. And it's great to see that many people are also buying within the KY8 area. Obviously, that is just still, and yes, we're over a year since it opened up, but obviously the investment that was put into the area with the commuting links, with Leven train station and Cameron Bridge. So it is a more accessible and desirable area for people. So it's great to see that 41 buyers have chosen KY8 as their home. Dunfermline, 165 versus 170. As I've said, always higher transaction numbers, and you can see that it is due to the obviously affordability. You can get a lot more property for a lot less money being on this side of the bridge with actually a reasonable commute still into the bigger cities, whether it be drive, train, bus. You've got options being in Dunfermline, which is why people gravitate towards that location, hence why the transaction numbers are higher. They do have more volume that they work through. Glenrothes, 49 versus 44. Yes, slightly less than what was instructed. However, still 44 is a strong number of properties selling. And then Kirkcaldy, big numbers, 76 versus 92. So again, great to see because Kirkcaldy does again have high numbers. It's probably after Dunfermline, it's the next one in line with high transaction numbers. So actually, it's great to see that 92 properties sold within the KY1 postcode because again, it means we're working through any older stock, which is great to see because it means we're not carrying it into the new year perhaps. So actually, all in all, great numbers to see. It means in certain areas we're working through older stock, we're still holding their own, still bringing properties to market and also property selling. It's not like within that there's one area that really sticks out that's concerning or alarming. It's great to see across the board still properties coming to market. However, there's still absolutely buyers out there and we are working through any older stock. So that is great to see. And this is where you really need to look at the facts. Now, as I said, if you do want to discuss this in more detail, please do reach out and we're more than happy to have that conversation with you. Now, as I mentioned, that was resale homes only. Now, for the month of November, to give you an insight, with the new builds, while we can't see when they have gone as under offer or sold, we can see when they were new instructed and made available. So there was 8 new builds made available in St Andrews in the month of November. So that'll be that David Wilson development. There's then 1 in Dunfermline, there was 9 in Glenrothes, and then 15 in Kirkcaldy. So that is new builds that were made available. So that is a great insight into what was taking place, obviously for the month of November. Obviously, it'll then be great to see for the December months as well. But it really just shows you there in black and white that now is absolutely the time to sell. So that is what is happening with all agencies across Fife. But let's take a look at what we were doing in particular as an agency to give you an insight into what has accepted offers, what's coming soon, and also what has completed, so you can understand what offers have been accepted and also what style of properties and types are being snapped up. So let's start with sold. So we will pull it up on the screen just so you can picture it. So the first property that was sold was in the KYA area, and this was Wellesley Road in Buckhaven. Now, if you know the area, you know exactly where this is situated, right on that main road. Great location for amenities, accessibility in all directions, and also a cracking family home. It is a 3-bedroom semi-detached. As you can see, you've got driveway, you've got a garden to the front that you could create a driveway, just like all the neighbouring properties. You've got a garden to the rear, and because of the positioning of this property, you do actually get sea views, which is fantastic. But with this property, it was actually a property that you can go in there, add value, put your own stamp on it, and make a fantastic family home. Now, it was on the market for offers over 110,000. So when you think of that price point to get a family home with potential, because imagine as soon as you add a driveway and then you put your own stamp on the inside, and the fact you have those sea views, you are sitting on great capital when you have obviously completed that work, which is great. But actually you've secured a family home, which the family that have purchased it are absolutely delighted. Likewise, the sellers are delighted because if you can see across the top there, sold in 1 week, which is just brilliant. So a buyer was secured within 1 week of this property hitting the market, which delighted with both seller and buyer. But what does that mean? That also means because it was snapped up so quickly, there were people that missed out on it. Now, if you do have a property like this, similar in the surrounding area, surrounding streets, then please do reach out. We can get Perry to come out and see you, give you your accurate valuation based on your footprint of properties, the standard, the views, what it has going for it in terms of features. We can then discuss what we need to do for you to get you the exact same results. So please do reach out if you have something similar to that. Likewise, obviously, make sure you are keeping a lookout on our social media pages so you don't miss out on properties like this. Now, keeping it within the KYA area, another property that again is a 3-bedroom semi-detached, so another family home that has been snapped up. And actually, interestingly enough, it is another property that has potential to add value. So 2 properties of the exact same footprint with the exact same scenario that you're going to go in there, add instant value, put your own stamp on it, but you have secured a fantastic family home in a desirable area. As soon as you see Scooney written anywhere in the address, it's going to be a popular one. It's where people want to be. So this one was on the market for offers over 160,000. So again, you know that you can go in there and you can add value, but you are getting an absolutely cracking family home. And you can see you've got quite a large plot, and just like neighbouring properties, you can create that off-street parking, but because you've got a great plot, you can extend further if you wish. So many people do so many different things with the Scooney properties that it's entirely up to you what works for you. But that is the properties that we sold in the agency last week. Now we will look at what we have coming soon to market. So this is where Perry and I have been out to properties, we have valued them, and they are coming to market with ourselves. So this is a real sneak peek insight before we do that pre-portal. Now, if you aren't aware of what a pre-portal is, it is a preview video of a property before it hits the Rightmove, the Zoopla, the S1 Homes, and the wider portals. So firstly, to be able to see these pre-portal videos, you need to be following our social media channels. So head to Facebook, and wherever you're looking to purchase a property, that is the page to follow. So if you are looking to purchase in the Leavenmouth, the KYA area, follow our Fife Properties Leven page, Cooper, Fife Properties Cooper page, obviously so on. Then what you're looking to see is the words pre-portal and the agent's face. That is then the full video walkthrough. That is the preview of the property before it hits the wider market. Watch it in full because it's almost like your virtual viewing. We show you all the details. We talk you through the features, any potential further developments. We show you outdoor space. Has it got views? What does that look like? We then talk you through location. And then we always, at the very, very end, which some people get impatient for, at the very end, we tell you the price point of the property that we predict it to come to market at. So once you've watched that, if it is a property that appeals to you, you need to reach out to us. You need to act fast because you have just a couple of days when you see that pre-portal before it does go to the wider market. So if it is something that ticks your boxes, you need to get in touch, put your best foot forward. And if it's an offer that the seller cannot refuse, then you've potentially secured that property before anybody else and before it goes to the wider market. But you do need to put your best foot forward. Now, if you want to discuss and understand that process in a bit more detail, please reach out to us and we'll happily guide you through what a pre-portal means and what you need to do to have yourself pre-portal ready. So coming soon. So the first one is West End in St Monans. Now this is a 2-bedroom terraced townhouse, and it is townhouse, so that means it's split over 3 levels for those that aren't perhaps aware. So it means you have accommodation split across 3 levels. You enter in, you have a lounge, you then have a bedroom, but then you have also a further bedroom at the very top. Fantastic location. You are literally a stone's throw from the beach, from the harbour. You've got the Craig Miller restaurant. It is a fantastic location, but actually it's a fantastic property. It is moving condition, ready to go. So if you're looking for something to just turnkey, walk in and start enjoying, then this property could be the one for you. As I say, it's 2-bedroom, 2-reception, terrace townhouse, fantastic location. I am due to be doing the pre-portal tomorrow morning. Fingers crossed for the weather. So we'll see how we get on with that. But pre-portal's due to be tomorrow, so keep a look on the eSnook page. As always, I'll do a little watch out sneak peek for you. So perhaps you can see exactly where it's situated on the West End. But if it is something that's going to appeal to you, then please do reach out once you do see that. So next one is Pentland View in Kennoway. So this is a property that is again in a desirable area in Kennoway. It is within the development that people, especially families, are looking for, because you're getting an ideal family home in a desirable area. You're close to schooling, you're close to amenities, you've got the Cameron Bridge train station, you've got the walks around you as well. So it really is something that ticks all the boxes. And we know anything that's Pentland View and in that kind of area does get snapped up. So it is great to see that another one is coming to market in the area. Now, this particular one is a 3-bed detached house. So again, an ideal family home. And it'll be Perry doing that one. So keep a look out on the leaving page for the pre-portal. But that is our coming soons. Now completed. So I've got quite a few to talk you through. So this is properties that have gone through the conveyancing stage, missives are signed, buyers are in, and they are now being enjoyed by their new owners. But what that means for you is we can now tell you what they went for and what offers were accepted, to give you an insight into what people are offering and also what price points are selling and what style of properties. Now we have a range here. There is so much to talk you through. First one, Malt Row in Pitlessie. 4-bedroom, 4-reception, detached. It was substantial plot, secluded plot as well. Extremely high standard, open plan living, beautifully landscaped gardens. Also so much off-street parking, which is going to be ideal come the Christmas and you've got family and friends visiting and guests. So this particular property was on for offers over 550,000 and it sold for 5,000 over home report value. So the new owners are absolutely delighted with their home, in time for Christmas, which is fantastic. Sellers are delighted that they're now moved on with their journey. Next one was Abercrombie, just on the outskirts of Anstruther. And this particular property was a big footprint. It was 5 bedrooms, 2 receptions, detached. You had a balcony that gave you stunning views across the fields, right to the Firth of Forth, uninterrupted views. With this property, though, there was also a separate 1-bedroom, self-contained garden house. Now, the entire property, whether it be the annex or the house, was finished to an extremely high standard. You can probably guess it was a substantial plot. And this was on the market for, it sold for 30,000 over the home report value. So it sold for 655,000. So a high price point of property to begin with, and then sold and was negotiated 30,000 over, which is absolutely fantastic. Buyer is absolutely delighted. And again, they're in time for Christmas, which is amazing. And you can just imagine the views that they have from that home. High Street, Strathmiglo, different location again. So this particular property was a 2-bedroom, 2-reception terrace property. Gorgeous character building. Now, what was great with this one is, yes, it was 2 bedrooms, but actually there was an attic space that had already been converted and was being used as a bedroom. So it was technically a 3-bedroom, but we just couldn't call it. So that was, as I say, 3-bedroom, 2-reception, terrace property. There was the option for 1-level living as well. It had a beautiful landscape garden that probably when you're standing out at the front, you don't realise what is at the rear, which is great. You had views over the Lomond Hills as well. So that was a fantastic property, and that sold for 197,000. Next one was Church Road in Leven, so another area again. This one was a 6 bedroom, 3 reception, 5 bathroom guest house. However, you could convert it back to a family home. It was in a fantastic location. You could literally just walk around the corner and you were at the beach, Fife Coastal Path. So this one sold for 400,000. Next one, again, keeping it in Leven, Foreman Road. So this was a 3 bedroom detached bungalow finished to an immaculate standard. It was just incredible. It had a south facing garden, detached double garage, and an extensive driveway. So again, a fantastic plot size, and it sold for 350,000. So 25,000 over the home report value. Family are delighted that they've been able to move on. Likewise, the buyer is delighted that they secured a property in a fantastic location while also being really high standard and a great plot as well. So it really does tick all the boxes. And then another property that was concluded, this is our final one, again within the KY8 area, but this was Glencairn Gardens, and it was a 4 bedroom, 3 bathroom, 3 reception, detached, extended property, finished to a really, really high standard, extensive off-street parking. And this one sold for 375,100, so 25,100 over the home report value, which again is a fantastic number to achieve over that home report value. So there's been some fantastic results, some really high price points, but still going over the line, which is great to see, and a mixture of different styles of properties in all different areas. So fantastic results and great to have those all over the line. Even better, everybody has moved and in their new homes in time for Christmas, which is what we absolutely love to see. So that is what we were doing last week as an agency. So a lot of activity. Finally, before we round up, let's take a look at the shows that were done. So as always, Wealth Creation Show, you had it with Jim Parker, one of the UK's most successful property investors, and Richard Cook, our lettings director. And yesterday's show was the Necker Island Detox. Now, if you didn't see the week previous, they were on Necker Island and they did the show from there. It was fantastic, so go back and watch that. But yesterday was the Necker Island Detox. So they were obviously winding down from their action-packed week on Necker Island. Those that follow social media would have seen how busy and active they are. They obviously then took the time to reflect and assess the true value of the experience, understanding the purpose of being in such a place, surrounded by like-minded and successful people and individuals, and how that can obviously help with your character building, putting your own experiences into perspective and recalling where and who you have learned good habits and picked up the bad ones is crucial for moving forward. So you had Richard and Jim on hand discussing that, doing that detox. So certainly do go back and watch that. It'll be very insightful. Another show that was done was the landlord bookkeeping and tips for easy and HMRC ready accounts. Again, you had it with lettings director Richard and Jim Parker, and they were on hand discussing that and the pleasure of landlord bookkeeping. Some may share pleasure, some may not, but that obviously comes down to how well organized they are. Whether you're a natural admin wizard or a regular last minute filer, the job of completing your tax return is rarely an annual highlight. A lot of people absolutely dread it. Now you have obviously a lot of hoops that you have to jump through within that self-assessment filing. So it's always worth looking at how you can streamline your accounts for savings, efficiencies, and also hopefully minimize some of that stress and that dread that you get when it comes to that time. So that is a fantastic one. And perhaps even if you're not a landlord, even just listening to that show, if you perhaps are self-employed or you do bookkeeping, you could pick up some absolutely fantastic hints and tips from that. To make useful for you. So go and watch that one. But that is the shows that have taken place. That is our update for another week. We are well on the way into December, so I will see you next Tuesday, again live at 10 o'clock to do our weekly update. Anything in the meantime, feel free to reach out to us. We're more than happy to hear from you. But for me, all the best, take care, and I will see you next week. Bye for now.